How to play the card game Ryder. In this short animation, we'll give you the rundown. Firstly, we're going to look at the different types of cards. Legend cards. Placed to the side of your field, this is the character you'll be playing for your game. Each legend has its own ability to be used throughout gameplay. Some abilities have a minor impact on the game, and also a minor penalty if you fail. Others can have a major impact, but with massive penalties if you fail. Abilities mostly require real-world skills to be successful, and each legend has a prologue, so give them a read on the website. Ryder cards. Each have their own skill, activated by using your personal warcry. They have an attack and defense stat and are played against an enemy's field. If the attack of your card bests the defense of their card, you win their card. Some cards, like this farmer, have a skill that activates regardless of if your attack was successful or not. Others require success. Champion cards are the rarest cards in the deck. If attacked by a Ryder card, they always win. Instead of a direct attack or warcry, they boast their own individual special abilities. These cards are played directly on the table rather than against another card, and the actions from the card followed. The last type of card is a trigger card. Trigger cards are cards placed in your field that are triggered by other players or are triggered upon pickup from the reserve. Cards that are triggered from a player's field are activated if disturbed in any way, whether that be by another player's actions or your own. Yeah, that's right, you could trick your own trap. Let's have a look at the areas of play. The field. This is where you'll place all your cards when you get them at the start of the game. Take a look at each card and place them down as such. You may look at your cards at any time, but they must be placed back in the same position. The reserve. This is what you use to replenish your field. Players replenish their cards in the order cards were removed from them, finishing with the player whose turn it was. Graveyard. Certain cards are discarded to the graveyard throughout the game. The graveyard cards are still in-game and are used in certain warcries or champion skills. Oblivion. Some cards are too powerful to be used repeatedly. These cards are sent to Oblivion and out of the game. Tributes. These are how you win. Collect as many as you can to potentially win. We'll come back to the mechanics of winning. Legend cards. You'll randomly be given one at the start of the game. Each have their own abilities and penalties. It'll sit next to your field unless its ability is one that blocks another player or shields one of your cards. And in that case, it'll sit on top of that card for that round. Abilities do not have to be used every round. Alright, now let's look at how to play. Firstly, shuffle and deal a random legend card to each player. Next, deal 4 cards to each player. Players place their cards in front of them, in a row next to each other. Once in position, a player cannot move a card from its location in the row until the card is removed from the game. Players may pick up and look at their cards as often as they like, but must always place them back in that position. Next, each player chooses a warcry. This can be any word or phrase. They announce it to the group as their warcry. And lastly, we choose who starts the play. Players all draw a card from the reserve. The player with the highest card can choose who plays first and the direction the gameplay proceeds in. The highest card is determined in the following order: trigger cards, Ryder cards by rank, wizard, Hashishin, queen, king. All drawn cards are shuffled back into the reserve. On your turn, you may take one action and also utilize your legend ability. First, we'll start with a Ryder card play example. If you wish to use the warcry, state your warcry before placing your card on the table. If you place your card and then state your warcry, the warcry auto-fails. Place your card face up in front of another player's card. That player then turns over their card. If it's also a Ryder card, compare attack and defense, and if you win, their card goes to your tributes. If you did use your warcry, then action the warcry for that card. If the player you attacked lost a card, they now replenish this from the reserve. Your Ryder card is returned to the same position it came from in your field, face down. Now let's look at the same scenario, but we're going to lose. They do not receive your card. Your card is returned to your field. If you did use your warcry and you failed, one of two things will happen. 1. If the card you are attacking with does not have a fail action, just like this farmer card, the warcry still takes effect. Or 2. The card does have a fail action. Because you failed, the fail action takes effect. Let's have a look at a champion card play example. Champions do not require you to state a war cry before use. Rather than playing them against an opponent's card, simply place them in the middle of play and read, then follow the card instructions. Champion cards may be played as a combination if you have multiple of them in your field. For instance, you may play 1, 2, 3 or even 4 wizards simultaneously if you have them in your field. Their actions can apply to multiple opponents, not just one. In this case, with the king, we discard it to oblivion once used. And now we replenish our field from the reserve. Trigger cards. Some trigger cards trigger on pickup from reserve. Others are placed in your field. You cannot move the trigger card once it is in your field, except to look at it to remind yourself of what it is. These are triggered if another player tries to attack it or uses a skill that forces that card to be disturbed in any way. Traps can also be accidentally triggered by yourself. For instance, if you have been made confused by a Ryder skill and have to shuffle your field, the trap activates, but not against the person who confused you, against yourself as you're the one confused. It triggers against you if you disturb it in any other way as well, except again to look at the card to remind yourself of what it is. Winning the game. You may remember I spoke about how you could potentially win by having the most tributes. Well, that's true unless someone has the same amount of tributes as you. If that's the case, sum the attack value of Ryder cards in your tribute pile. Champion cards, trigger cards, they don't count. The person with the highest number wins. Still drawn with someone? Well, no one likes a stalemate, so each pick a card and throw it across the room. Whoever's card went further or hits a wall first wins. That should settle it. Alright, so what else do I need to know? Here's some additional rules. If you miss seeing a card and were not obstructed, you cannot request to see it again. Every now and again, it may be strategic for you to want to skip your turn. You can do this if you wish, but you must state the following sentence exactly. Good lords and ladies, I, insert your game name here, must politely decline your invitation to play this round. Failure to recite this line word for word means they must play their turn. One additional rule that we have is if another player jumps when you make your war cry and the rest of the table agree that indeed they did jump at your war cry without you physically touching them, then you are granted 1 tribute from them. Only 1 tribute can be taken from each individual's war cry per game for each person on the table. And that's it. Thanks for watching How to Play. I really hope you enjoy the game.